after the TV storyline had ended at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, and after us having our first tag match together, which, despite the awful storyline, was actually a great match, we took our first vacation together to Hawaii. On our second day on Maui, we got lost on the way back from a day trip and stumbled across a beautiful, secluded beach. No one was there, only the sun drifting behind the cliffs, the sound of the ocean crashing against the shore, the odd bird chirping in song. I was taking photos of Colby as he was looking at the sunset, his jacked back and sleek tattoo a more beautiful sight than the picturesque scenery. All of a sudden, he pivoted and dropped to a knee. I stopped snapping as my jaw hit the sand below. "Will you marry me?" he asked. "What? Is this real?" "Yes," he said. Yes, of course," I exclaimed, happier than ever. As if by magic, a lady with a professional camera showed up a minute later. Colby hadn't planned any of this, but when we came across the ideal scenario, he figured it was perfect. And the magic lady took my iPhone and angled us into the best lighting. As we got unlost and found our way back to the hotel, I texted everyone I knew to tell them the good news. There was no shame, no worry, no doubt. As a friend, I'd never thought Colby would be the marrying type, but 2 months into dating, he was already calling me his wife. We never really discussed marriage. It was more of a foregone conclusion that we would be together forever. My mom didn't stop talking to me for 3 weeks when I told her. In fact, she was over the moon. When you know, you really do know. I was getting to travel the world and work side by side with my best friend and now fiancé, and paid to do it. Life was a series of ups with the odd down and little time to process anything or even be aware of what was happening. But once I had reached the top of the mountain, the first question was, what next? The company came and offered me a somewhat lofty contract. But now that I had achieved my ultimate goal, I wondered if it was time to think about my next goal. One outside of the confines of the ropes. Being a mother. I badly wanted a family one day. I had found my perfect partner. In work, I was becoming increasingly more anxious, worrying about my booking. Having reached the top of the mountain didn't mean I could enjoy everything more. It meant I was concerned about staying at the top. And I'm positive I was a pain in the ass for the creative team. It's so cliched that it's all about the journey and not the destination. But it was true. The destination was only the beginning of a new journey. But while I was worried about what was going to happen next, all of a sudden, the world shut down. The year 2020 was wild in all the worst ways. And it was about to get even wilder. Post-Raw, and in the throes of drunken passion, Colby and I took less caution than usual. Even though I did want to be a mother, I was still the champion, and I fully envisioned it would take an eternity to become pregnant. Even though I was only 33, considering the damage I had done to my body over the course of nearly 20 years, between taking bumps and eating disorders, I figured there was no way in hell that my insides would be working properly. Oh boy, was I wrong. When we returned home from filming WrestleMania at the PC 2 weeks later, I was already feeling nauseous. No, it couldn't have happened that quickly, could it? Holy shit, but what if it had? There won't be any fans for months. What will I be missing? If ever there was a time to be pregnant, this is it. But then again, what if I lose all my momentum? Everything I have worked for could all come crashing down. This has never been done before. How will Vince react? How will the fans react? How will my mom react? Out of wedlock and all that jazz. Only one way to find out. Take the damn test, Rebecca. I bought one of those early response tests. 6 days earlier, it said. I peed on the stick. The control line showed up immediately, but not the second line, the "you're pregnant" line. Without waiting the full time, I threw it in the bin because I was so certain I was not pregnant. Off I went to the gym, still nauseous as a sailor. When I came back, I noticed the stick again. Only this time, there was a second line. Oh shit. Don't read after 10 minutes, the box said. But that's a second line. I could swear that's a second line. I showed Colby. Oh shit, That's the second line. Right? But it says don't read after 10 minutes. When did you do this? Before the gym. Did you not read the instructions? You know I'm not an instruction reader. Well, fuck. Do another one. So I did. Another faint line. I think that's positive. It's very faint. I texted Rachel the next day, showing her. It looks negative, she said. Don't be disappointed. It usually takes a long time. But I feel it. I feel like shit. Might just be your period. My sister was trying for a full year. I'm getting a goddamn digital test. Life hack. Always go for the digital test. I went into the pharmacy to pick up the test. The man behind the counter offering me a good luck as I walked out, box in hand. After I actually read the instructions, Colby and I camped out in the bathroom, waiting for the little digital window to inform us of our fate. Those 3 minutes felt like we were waiting the entire duration of Schindler's List. Pregnant! Colby read out as he threw his arms up in the air, proud of his seed. Yes! Holy shit! Yes! But also, no! What if I'm not actually ready? I'm not ready! Now all those questions were real. What will Vince say? I asked, while simultaneously arguing that I shouldn't have to care. I was a woman and had a right to become a mother. Sure, it wasn't ideal that I was currently the champion. The men in our industry don't have to skip over the important part of life choice that is starting a family. Why should I have to? Apart from obvious reasons of the time away. But this was a new world, and these things should be taken into consideration. For better or worse, I was going to be the crash test dummy. Could women in wrestling have it all? Colby sent his mom a picture of me with the test. She rang immediately and went as far as to start opening up her closet, showing all the baby clothes she had already purchased in anticipation for this day. Damn, Holly, we ain't even been together that long. I thought I had more time. That's why these are the only things I have, she said as she pulled out an entire wardrobe for a newborn. Oh man, I'm about to be someone's mom. We did the rounds. We called Colby's dad. We called my mom. We called my dad. The dads cried. Our lives were about to change forever. The tears streamed down my face. I'm not saying this. This is the biggest announcement of my life, and I'm not going to have 2 old men tell me how I'm going to say it. We agreed on this weeks ago. Why the hell has this all changed? Why is no one listening to me? The doe-eyed rider looked back at me. I'm sorry, I don't think you have to say it exactly as is. What the fuck is the sword of Damocles, and why the fuck would I be talking about it now? And why am I starting a fight with Charlie? Or anyone, for that matter? Charlie was our backstage interviewer. Well, you don't. It's not what we agreed on. I'm pretty sure I was turning crimson while I ugly cried, yelled, and rained spit drops all over the poor rider who was trying to console me. This was the epitome of my difficult to work with era, only now amplified by the multitude of hormones circulating in my body. There's a custom in the backstage politics of professional wrestling where you must maintain your best poker face at all times. Emoting is seen as a sign of weakness, and this business is survival of the fittest. Ironically, beyond the curtain, the opposite is true. The best wrestlers are the ones who emote authentically, who allow the audience to feel what they feel. They sell, i.e., react to something in such a way that makes it appear believable and legitimate to the audience, usually referring to the physical side of wrestling, but it stretches far beyond that. We're selling stories, characters, hopes, dreams, and most importantly, merch. Okay, maybe it's not most important, but in the eyes of the company, it's pretty darn important. Anyway, back to my meltdown. Vince is almost done. Go in there as soon as Jamie's out. On most days, even though I had built a good relationship with Vince McMahon, there was still always a nervous anticipation of approaching his door to ask for something. Today, however, was no ordinary day. I had no filter, no restraint, and absolutely no couth whatsoever. There was no deep breath or blessing myself to protect myself against his ability to mind control before I knocked on the door. In fact, I didn't even knock on the door. I kicked that mother down. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Clearly, I had enough rage on my face that our director of creative at the time, Paul Heyman, gathered his papers and bolted out of there as quick as he could. I had long since hypothesized that pregnancy was accompanied by a free pass for bad behavior, and on this occasion my theory had been proved correct. I was only 9 weeks pregnant, but I was bad to the bone. Vince, still miraculously delighted about the fact that his current longest reigning women's champion and arguably biggest star was leaving to go have a child, was oblivious to the fury I had brought into his office as he greeted me with a welcoming hug that ended up tears soaking his fancy Armani blazer. "What's wrong?" he asked, finally reading the room. What came out of my mouth next was barely comprehensible, but between sobs I managed to get out, "I don't want to do this. No one is listening to me." What are you talking about? Calm down now here a second. What don't you want to do? Vince consoled me like a grandpa. I composed myself for long enough to explain why I didn't want to go out and start a fight with Charlie, who was simply interviewing me, and then pick a fight with Asuka, who, unbeknownst to her, would become the next Raw Women's Champion. I was the man and all, but I wasn't a dumbass pregnant lady who would pick fights for no reason. He listened before asking, "What do you want to do?" "I want to go out there with the title and the Money in the Bank briefcase and talk about how much this has meant to me, but say I need to go away for a while. Then Asuka comes out screaming at me looking for a contract. I tell her that I put a lock on the case and that she hadn't just won the chance at the title, she had won much more. She opens it, then I say, 'Now you go be a warrior, because I'm going to go be a mother.'" "Well, that's much better. Why don't we do that?" "Really?" I was now sobbing because of how nice he was being. "No one told me this idea. It's great. Let's go do it now," Vince said with a warmth that tends not to be associated with the mythical billionaire. I had somehow managed to keep my makeup intact in the midst of my breakdown, and Vince guided me to the empty warehouse to give my farewell speech in front of nothing but a camera and a skeleton crew. Such was the COVID-era way. It was a long way from where I started. I'd left my family years ago to make this dream work. Now I was leaving my dream work to make a family. Belly and hormones aplenty was sending me into a deep anxiety. I'm not the world's best at doing nothing. But if nothing else, I'd be doing nothing with the rest of the planet. Except maybe I tried to write this book. The week before I was due, I got unearthly terrified. I am not ready. Everyone would ask me, "How are you feeling? Are you excited?" I'd respond with an, "Oh my God, I can't wait," while inside I was trembling with fear. What if I didn't bond with her? What if I got postpartum depression? I tend to veer on the side of the depressive as it is. On a rare day off from the gym, Colby and I sat down in his coffee shop and were relaxing as we watched a couple of young girls play on the couches there. "We're going to have one of those." "I know," I responded with a hint of anxiety. Not a moment later, the phone rang. "Hi, is this Rebecca?" "It is." "Hi, this is Dr. Jones." "Hi, Doc, what's up?" "We tested your liver enzymes and they've become elevated. You have what we call cholestasis, so we're going to bring you in to induce you." I grabbed Colby's arm as he was mouthing, "Who is that? What's going on?" as I clearly had a terrified look on my face. The doctor continued, "Because if it passes through the placenta, it will stop the baby's heart. Seeing as you're 39 weeks, it really is best to just get her out now." I quickly responded, "Oh, shit, okay, we'll head right there," before telling Colby, "We have to go have the baby now. They're going to induce me." Panicked, he loudly replied, "No? What? No? What's happening? No! We have to. Actually, Doc, could you just explain this to my husband?" We weren't married yet, but fiancé is such a fluffy word. 1 minute later, he hung up the phone. "We're going to have a baby! Ah!" I guess I wasn't the only one who was nervous, though I was now visibly shaking. The reality that life would never be the same again had come. We rushed home and got our bags. I was in labor for 24 hours without pain medication and was now puking and spasming uncontrollably from the pain. Though I think the most painful experience of the whole thing was the annoying high-pitched nurse telling me, "Each contraction is bringing you closer to meeting your baby." Shut up, bitch, I'm puking over here. What if I don't like this baby? It sounds cold and heartless, but I'm 98% sure that plenty of women have felt the same way on the brink of giving birth. Going from someone's child to someone's parent in one fell swoop. I had told myself that if I could get through this without an epidural, I would be able to do anything else in life that I wanted. I would have the will and determination and fortitude to achieve anything. For I am the creator of life, the fortress of pain, the willer of wills, or something like that. Point is, I hadn't had a challenge in a while, and I was getting pretty damn bored chilling at home. The Pitocin swam through my veins, never letting the agony break for a split second. The sensation was compounded temporarily by the loud crunch of chips and the ratchet smell of salsa as Colby dug into his snack. A serpent's tongue temporarily popped out of my mouth as I hissed, "Go away." "What's that, honey?" he replied lovingly. "Go away, please." "Huh?" He sounded befuddled. My head felt too heavy to even look up. "The chips. Go away. Just go away, please." He put the crinkling bag away as he sighed. "I'm so hungry." I was passing the threshold. Shit was happening. You know, movies give a real bad indication of labor. I thought the pushing part was the hard part. But as soon as I had the urge, I felt like a release. Like finally my body was working with me and not against me. Sure, the guttural sounds that came from me were like something you'd hear on Animal Planet, but it wasn't painful. After I'd been pushing for 5 minutes, the doctor informed me the baby's heart rate was dropping. "We have to get this baby out now," she directed me firmly, yet shockingly calmly. I was done waiting for contractions to push. I bore down and pushed that child out with every fiber of my being. Only she wasn't crying. Why wasn't she crying? I'd never been more scared in my life. After spending 9 months wondering if I would bond with this baby, I was immediately ready to die for her. The nurse had a cloth over the baby's mouth as they hit her on the back. "She can't breathe," I yelled at the nurse, moving the cloth away from my baby's nose and mouth, completely forgetting how umbilical cords work. 30 of the longest seconds of my life later, I was calmed as with one final whack to her back, she started the most adorable, most amazing little whimper I had ever heard. My little baby girl was here. She was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, and I loved her with every cell in my body. Nothing would ever be more important to me than her. We named her Rue. I thought that was such a cool name. But when she cried, she looked like a little grumpy old lady. She looked more like an Agnes than a Rue. Still, we called her Rue. I couldn't believe that this most perfect baby, who, by the way, I had no idea how to look after, was mine to keep. 2 days later, we went home. My perfect little family. I was en route to LA 8 months after I had had Rue when Vince McMahon called me. What would a comeback look like at SummerSlam? Even though I was back to being on the road 4 days a week, every week of the year, I had my new little family with me the whole time. Sure, it meant dragging a tiny baby to Saudi Arabia and back again twice, or to and from the UK several times and on planes several times a week. I was what with my beautiful little baby, hot-ass husband and dream job, life has been fucking good. I have learned many things on my journey, many of which are your usual cliches. That it's always about the journey and not the destination. That change is always possible, and things are only impossible until someone does them. That nothing outside of ourselves can bring lasting happiness. More than anything, I have learned that my biggest enemy has always been self-doubt, and that when I have been able to free myself from its irritating shackles and had the courage to trust my inner compass, wonderful things can happen. I had never considered myself successful, always striving to do more, be more, chase more. That hamster wheel had become pretty exhausting until I realized I have everything I wished for since I was a kid. My family, my dream job, my friends. For the girl who was always so average in every aspect of life, average height, average weight, average anxieties, average grades, average upbringing, I've gotten to do some most unaverage things. I am not your average girl.